Welcome to this episode of Talking Development. I am doing this episode from Accra, Ghana, where I am finishing up a mission to West Africa, starting in Cote d'Ivoire and now ending here in Ghana. Being here in Ghana has been very interesting because many of us know Ghana as a country in Africa that has taken a lot of steps to develop its country and to reach development outcomes. Just a few examples. Ghana is the second country in the region with the highest digital rates. It's also a country that has achieved a lot on the human capital side, particularly on nutrition and poverty reduction. It has infrastructure and it has taken strong reforms in the past to be able to generate growth and jobs. Today, Ghana, like many countries around the world, are going through hardship. The outlook for growth is not as strong as it needs to be. Youth are looking for jobs, and there are a lot of issues that need to be addressed to make sure that reversals on human development are addressed and really Ghana starts again building its human capital for the future. So this episode of Talking Development is really dedicated to building and maintaining resilience. And here's my take. Countries like Ghana, like many others, can have a strong track record of growth and of development. And it doesn't take much to set it back. It can be an exogenous shock. It can be a domestic issue. It can be policy decisions made that add up and compound into an economic crisis, which is why continuous efforts and focus on building resilience and adapting to changes is so important. And I'm joined today in this episode of Talking Development with two staff here from the Ghana office, Christabel, who works on social protection, and Harold, who works on the water sector. And we're going to talk about exactly this, resilience. Welcome to both of you. Thank you for being with me.
Thank you for having us.
I'm going to start with you, Christabel. You work on social protection. And what I've noticed over the last few days being here is that you're working so closely with other sectors, particularly at this time of crisis. Can you talk us through a bit how the social protection system, the social protection measures fits into addressing the economic crisis that Ghana is going through?
Thank you very much. So during the crisis, what happened? The reality is, as we know, people lost jobs because of the lockdowns that happened. Inflation went up, food prices went up. So naturally, even those who were well off were struggling, let alone the poorest. And so in the social protection group, what we try to do is to build systems that help in response. In Ghana, that's exactly what we did. For the last decade, we had been working on digitizing our platforms, one, to improve our service delivery, but also to make sure that the right people are targeted and can get a response. And that is one of the key pieces that supported us during COVID. We also built a grievance redress mechanism that was simple for beneficiaries, one phone number, one SMS contact, one community system that people know it's easy for them to reach and it's easy for them to ask for help. And we put all these systems together, including the digitization agenda that we put together that gave us resilience and support. First of all, the World Bank had systems that could help us to quickly restructure and be able to make funds available. So I think that was an important step. After which, the key was to work closely with government to say, what in our systems can we do better? We switched very quickly to having people go to banks instead of us having what we call cash outs, which is having people in line and be surrounded. And there was the issue around social distancing. So we quickly put on a top up and then we had people go to banks. But I look at even the longer term, which is, what does that do? It now exposes a poor person to the banking system. It makes them realize that they too can be part of the system. They can start saving. They don't have to take all their money, because when you go to them, typically you give them exactly what they need, and then that's it.
That's wonderful, Christabel. And I have to tell you, since I arrived here in Ghana, there has not been one interaction I've had with government authorities where they haven't taken note and acknowledged the bank's strong presence in our COVID response, really increasing our support, but also being quick and being timely. So Harold, I wanted to ask you, Ghana has achieved significant access performance in terms of infrastructure services. What do you see now as Ghana's most important priorities in the water and sanitation sector to be able to take it essentially to the next level? And I'll tell you something, when we were at the Ghana Tech Lab, I saw an innovation which I thought was cool, which was sanitation services for poor communities, using actually smart cards. So people actually have access to decent sanitation, safe and clean sanitation. So maybe also just a little bit on the role of smart solutions, digital, and reaching the poor.
So in Ghana, what we've done, the bank has supported the water and sanitation sector to prepare what we are calling the Ghana Wash Sector Development Program, which is directing what all partners in the sector will do up till 2030. And working on, specifically when it comes to smart solutions, on the rural wash project which we did, we provided smart taps. And these are taps where you buy a token and then any amount of water you want, you go to the vending point, you put it on it, the water comes exact amount that you want. Originally, when we started, a lot of groups were against effectively asking people to prepay for water because they thought it would be a challenge. The communities actually came back and said, we prefer this to what we had. So you don't need to buy in bulk. You can buy any amount on your token, go at any time, fetch any volume you want. And that's been one of the key things we've done. Rains in the north are intense. So you have basic sanitation facilities being washed away, and the effort which has been put in place, everything is gone. So we try to support them with more resilient structures which will be able to withstand the shocks which we face, especially in the northern part of Ghana. But when you come down to the south, even with the urban poor, the challenges are huge. The assumption is that everybody should be able to afford a toilet, but our urban communities are dense, tightly packed. So some kind of support mechanisms have been put in place. Currently, we've had over 40,000 household toilets being constructed under the project for the urban poor in low-income urban communities.
Wow, that's great. And I think one important point you make there is that it's empowering, because you're choosing how much you want to purchase, and you're actually having access to a clean water point, of really making sure that our development solutions reach everybody and that we reduce these disparities geographically, spatially, make sure everybody has a chance to be part of the development process. Christabel, I want to come back to you. How do you see the role of social protection as an enabler of an economic transformation in the country? What's needed from the social protection system to support economic growth and making sure that the buffer is there in case of a future crisis?
So like you said, COVID taught us a lot of lessons. And I think one of them that came out quite clearly in Ghana is that the benefits level for the cash transfers is quite low. And so a lot of advocacy has been done into how do we increase the levels so that it can actually lift people out of poverty. Otherwise, it's just a matter of, going hand to mouth and not being able to really develop economically. So that's one of the big issues that we need to look at, social protection financing, if we can truly be resilient should there be another shock. Secondly, what we try to do is the cash transfers are for basic consumption, just so you can have more than one meal a day and a good nutritious meal. But you need to do more than that. And so our programming also supports short-term employment opportunities where mostly women are able to get short-term jobs, particularly in the agricultural off-season, and they're also building community assets. On top of that is productive inclusion activities, where we provide a comprehensive systematic support to individuals for sustained livelihoods. This is really important because it can be seen as an exit plan away from cash transfers, which every government tends to want to have more jobs. And so we see it as more jobs for the poor. It builds empowerment for the people because they own their own businesses. And I like to say not everybody is able to do that, which is why the short-term employment opportunities are also important.
Wow, Christabel, thank you so much. Harold, I'm going to come back to you. A few weeks ago, I had the pleasure of sitting down with 2 regional chief economists and talking about growth outlooks for their regions, the work that they're leading on the knowledge agenda. And one of the economists was actually Andrew from the Africa region. And he had a number of priorities and policy recommendations. And one of them was actually water security. And the reason for that, of course, is that it's so closely linked to the agricultural sector, which is so important as an economic activity for jobs here in Africa. And the other reason was because of climate change, which we know will actually knock percentage points off GDP if left unattended. So I wanted to hear from you. This is a policy advice for the region from the regional chief economist. Does it resonate here in Ghana?
And he couldn't have been more on point. Let's take northern Ghana, for example. More than 70% of the population in the north of Ghana are into agriculture. It's purely an agrarian area, agrarian economy. And we have just one rainfall. Short duration, high intensity. The amount of rainfall that we have is enough for all year round agriculture. Unfortunately, it happens in a space of 6 weeks to 3 months. And lots of times, large tranches of land are flooded. So what we need in that part of Ghana is to store the water and use it for all year round agriculture, and there'll be total transformation. The bank has undertaken a rural development project, which is underpinned by water security. And we are bringing together, of course, agriculture, roads, to make sure that there's access to markets for farmers to be able to send their produce to the markets, and then also to build more agribusinesses in the northern part of the country. So you need that water properly harnessed, properly utilized to improve the livelihoods of the people.
Wow, thank you so much, Harold. I want to thank both of you. You've shared some incredible experiences from Ghana that I would love to see transfer to other countries in the region and beyond. And I really want to thank you for being here. Resilience is really something we need to focus on, whether it's economic, environmental, human resilience against shocks. It has to be a major cornerstone of the work that we do in all regions that we operate in. Thank you so much, and see you again on the next episode of Talking Development.